Hey kids, great to see you again. So I'm here with New York Times bestselling author Marcus Brotherton, and we actually have a connection because he actually helped me write my book. He actually was my ghostwriter, and there's really no mention of him in my on the book. But anyway, so he helped walk me through that, and that's what we're going to end up doing in this video. We're going to talk about how to write a book because I had no idea when we got into it. And Marcus was a nice calming voice, and I think you'll really enjoy getting to meet him and getting to know a little bit about him. But first I have a dad joke for you. So, my favorite dad joke about books, and I've actually used this before, so I'm recycling. So I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. I can't seem to put it down. So you guys probably finished that for me, right? Because you already knew that I have said that before. Those have been with me for a long time. So so before we get started, Marcus, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so it was an absolute pleasure working with Rob, and let me just give you every reassurance in the book that Rob is the real deal. And we were able to do kind of a deep dive into his life over the course of writing his book. And what you see is what you get, and Rob loves you and Rob cares for you, and it's just great to see that.
Wow. That's now I don't know what to do. I wasn't expecting that. We didn't talk about what we were going to talk about, so that's very kind. So let me throw one back at you. I think talking to you was, because that was a little bit of a traumatic time in my life. This thing blew up. I didn't know what to do, and then it was you. We would talk every week. You'd call me, and you have such a calming voice too, and just kind of tell me a little bit about that, Rob. It was almost like I was getting therapy while we were writing the book, because my book is about my past and going through all that, and so so I think we really became pretty good friends kind of through the whole process. And you were such a calming voice too. Don't worry about that, Rob, because I didn't know what I was doing. You've done this several times, right? So anyway.
So I actually started my writing career as a newspaper reporter, and really enjoyed working at the newspaper. It was actually at a time when newspapers were kind of going downhill. It was the start of really the digital revolution in newspapers. And so I had a former journalism professor who had gone on to work in books, and he started to send me some freelance work. And gradually my freelance career built to the place where I went full-time freelance. That was back in 2005. So here we are a bunch of years later, and I work full-time in books. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's very cool. And you definitely know the ropes, which was really helpful. It's just helpful to have a guide, kind of like what I try to provide is somebody that's kind of been there so you feel calm. And that's because how do you do it? And so we're going to talk about that today. You're going to kind of give, we're not going to get into the nitty gritty, but at least some pointers that you've learned probably the hard way. And that's what I've tried to do is try to pass on some stuff that I've learned the hard way, so that I could pass them along to other people so they don't have to go through maybe so many bumps to get there.
Absolutely. It can be a really steep learning curve, the whole commercial book industry. By commercial, I mean writing a commercially published book as opposed to a self-published book, to have a publisher back you. Steep learning curve, it can be done. So do you want to talk about how to write a book yet? Or?
Well, let's first, okay. Real quick. So my book came out in May of 2021. You've written other books too. So we'll talk real quick about your latest book. But were you part of Band of Brothers, or So tell us your connection there.
Yeah. So Band of Brothers was a HBO miniseries that came out in 2001 about World War II veterans, paratroopers who fought all the way during World War II. I was fortunate to live near Lieutenant Buck Compton, who's one of the original Band of Brothers. He was 85 when I met him. He's passed away now. Tremendous man, just lived a legendary life. So he really got me into working with World War II veterans. I helped Buck Compton write his book, and then things snowballed from there, and here I am a number of years later doing a lot of books about World War II.
Yeah, okay, so that's the connection, because when my manager first connected us, I was like, I got to find out a little bit about this guy, and it was just interesting to see what you've been involved with. And Band of Brothers is such a it's got such a huge following. We used to even refer to, in sales, we'd call ourselves the band of brothers that were going out, obviously doing something, much less traumatic than what those people went through, but we did look at ourselves as, we're going out and trying to win new business, and we would kind of have each other's back and stuff, and we would joke about that. But it does have so much, everybody's familiar with Band of Brothers, I think, so that's very cool that you've been a part of that. So this latest book is called A Bright and Blinding Sun. Yeah, I saw your other copy over there. I was looking for it, but yeah, so I don't know if you wanted to hold that up or you can grab that, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, so Marcus actually sent me this book as well, and I read it, and I really, really enjoyed it. I'll let him tell you about it. Probably let you tell a little bit more of a background, and I'll say what I really liked about it.
Sure. So it's a true story. It's about an underage World War II veteran. He was actually 14 years old when he enlisted. And he did that to escape a troubled home life. His parents were split up. He lived with his mother for a while and things got rough there. He lived with his father for a while and things got rough there. So finally his father kind of gave him this ultimatum. You can live here, but you can't live here with me. And so young Joe Johnson, kind of as a bluff, said, well, maybe I'll just run away and join the Army. And his bluff became reality, and he did. He went to a recruiter's office in Pasadena, and obviously the days before the internet, and young Joe Johnson at age 14 got lost in the shuffle and made it into the Army. Sent to the Philippines, and this was actually right before Pearl Harbor when America entered World War II, and went through training, and then the war hit. And suddenly this young teenager found himself thrust into this very horrific environment. One of the fascinating pieces about this story is that really it's a story of camaraderie, a story of friendship, and Joe made friends with a very sort of an unlikely person. As soldiers sometimes do, he was being led by soldiers who were much older than he was. And one night his buddies all went off to a brothel in Manila. Young Joe went with them, and there he met this young prostitute, young sex worker by the name of Perpetua. And Joe and Perpetua became amazing friends. They did consummate the relationship once and only once, and then Joe revisited her more than half a dozen times. And really she became his only female peer in that side of the world. She was actually, in some ways tragically, she was a year younger than he was, and yet she was working in this very difficult environment. What makes it fascinating is that Joe developed a true sense of empathy for this young girl whose name was Perpetua. He began to see the world in her shoes. Why was she there? Why was she in this environment she was? Well, she was an orphan. And extremely unfortunately, there just weren't a whole lot of options for young female orphans back then who were living on the streets. And so Joe began to help her, and she began to help him. And they would give each other hope and help each other survive. I won't give you the whole story right here.
Yeah, I was going to say, please don't tell too much. It's such a great story, and you do a good job of kind of, it's a page turner where it's like, I got to go to sleep. I'm still reading here though.
It'll keep you up nights.
Yeah.
Joe did some. The American troops eventually did surrender on Bataan. It was one of the largest concentrations of a surrender ever. And young Joe Johnson, at age 15, found himself in a POW camp. Very difficult times. But this friendship with Perpetua helped sustain Joe through the rest of the war, and he to her.
Yeah, it's very good. Good. I didn't want you to kind of, because I was like, what? How's this going to end? So I think you'll really enjoy it. And Marcus does have a lot of experience in writing books, so we're gonna tap into that real quick too. Again, it's kind of a bird's eye view, but it's some things that he has learned probably a lot the hard way. I did actually, I don't know if you need that. You probably already know it from heart, right? You probably know because you've probably refined it in your own mind. So go ahead, Marcus.
So people ask me all the time, how do you write a book? And to that question, I usually give them three main principles, and then explain 3 parts of the process, and then give them one golden rule. So the 3 main principles, and keep in mind we're kind of going at a 6,000 foot level here. The 3 main principles are this: it's hard, it can be done, and treat the process as an investment in yourself. Now, it's difficult. Many things in life are difficult, right? If you want to get your driver's license or go to college or go to trade school or buy a house or whatever it is, these things don't come automatically to you. So yes, you have to apply yourself. It's difficult, but it can be done. Why I start with it's difficult is really we would be doing a disservice if we told you otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so it's good to have that perspective in mind that writing is a performing art, like dancing or like being an actor. There's a lot of people who want to write a commercially published book. So there's a long line. But why I tell you it is difficult is on those days when it is difficult, you remind yourself, oh yeah, this isn't easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, sort of right, left, and center.
Yeah.
I've been in this for a number of years, and I still have difficult days even now. And I remind myself, this is a job that is difficult. But the second part of that, it can be done. If Rob and I can write books, you can write a book.
And I do try to encourage people with that kind of stuff. And I just want to interject real quick. I've tried to encourage all of you that when you're trying something new, you just got to sometimes you just got to break through that wall. You got to keep after it. Don't start to write, oh, that's horrible, I'm not good, I'm done. And I've compared it to baby steps because I use baby steps all the time. And when you think about it with a baby, when a baby's trying to walk, they don't just give up. They get up and they fall down. They get up and they fall down. They get up and they fall down. And they just keep doing it because they know they're going to get it eventually, or they're not overthinking it. I think as we get older, we tend, I guess I'm speaking for myself, I really overthink things. I've gotten better with that, but I think that, we overthink it to where you say, I'm just not good at this, and I'm just going to stop. I mean, sometimes you do have to realize, okay, maybe this isn't for me, but you got to give it a legitimate shot.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, when I started this process, I was really clueless, and I asked a lot of questions. A lot of people gave me a hand up. I would approach people who had done it for a number of years and said, how did you do it? Give me some pointers, give me some steps. And usually you find that people are really willing to help you out, particularly if you kind of show yourself to be earnest and a good student.
Yeah, I think that point actually carries over in a lot of things. I've found a lot of people, if you come in humbly and you just basically say, hey, I would really appreciate if you could share some knowledge with me, like even investing, even, all kinds of things. I think people, for the most part, are pretty willing to help as long as you're respectful of their time, right? And mm-hmm. Don't come up to them when they're real busy, or just say, hey, can I set up a time to learn from you? I think people are pretty good about sharing their knowledge.
Yeah. So this principle is, it's difficult, it can be done. And then thirdly, the other big principle is treat it as an investment in yourself. Particularly when writers are just starting to write, I encourage them to read the how-to books. Just go to Amazon and how to write a book. Type that in and see what comes up. And then go to writers' conferences. You're meeting other writers just like yourself. You're meeting agents. You're meeting editors in the industry. Yes, it is a little bit of time. It is a little bit of money to read these books. To attend these conferences, but again, treat it as an investment in yourself. The process of writing a book, it changes your reader. It also changes you for better. And so you want that good influx of investing in yourself.
Yeah, one thing, I want to make sure I get this in the interview because I remember this with you, that one thing that you told me, because we were talking about my experience of building my fence. And you talked about what can we do to draw the reader in, and you talked about the fresh smell of cedar, right? And people can relate to that and so it's just interesting to pick up on some of that stuff now because I've written a book to see how other people draw you in with things like that, and I think it's true because everybody loves the smell of cedar.
Yeah, and what I was telling Rob to do there is write with all 5 of your senses. Immerse yourself in a scene, and what does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it smell like? And you're going to draw a reader in. Yeah. So 3 main parts to the book writing process, and they are writing the book, securing the contract, and then promoting the book. So why I mention each 3 of those is that sometimes young writers, in particular, myself included, will write a manuscript. and a full-length manuscript is a big process. Like if you've written a full-length manuscript, give yourself a huge pat on the back. You've done something that's really, really cool. But anyway, so sometimes when young writers finish the manuscript, they kind of go, well, I'm done. I mean, I've written the book.
Yeah.
Really, that's about a third of the process. And it's helpful to know that going in, so that when you do finish this book and people say, actually, you've got to do this and this and this later on, you're not, what? Nobody ever told me that. Okay, here I am. I'm telling you this right now.
Yeah.
There's more to come. So writing the book, boy, there's definitely just a lot of nitty-gritty we could get into there. Again, my encouragement is to read the how-to books. Talk to your English professor or a journalist you know. Outline the book. I am an outliner. I do like to know where I'm going when I start. A lot of things we could say about grammar and things like that, but I think my encouragement there is you will figure it out. You will figure it out when you get into it, as you get into it, as you're reading books, as you're refining that manuscript. Yes, it can be done. Yes, it's difficult, but yes, it can be done. The second part of that process, securing the contract. So when you're finished your manuscript, you will need a literary agent who shops your manuscript to the publisher. How do you get a literary agent? So literary agents have to be, and I use this word deliberately, literary agents have to be wooed. All right, they can't be hired. You can't just call up a literary agent and say, hey, I want to come over and take my book. They don't do that. They have to read your manuscript or part of your manuscript usually, and they have to fall in love with it. They're going, yes, I love this manuscript. It needs to be out there. It entertains, informs, inspires, and we're going to take this manuscript and we're going to do good things with it. Literary agents get paid when and only when they sell your manuscript. They take 15% standard commission, and so they've really got to believe in your manuscript to take it and shop it.
And how do you find a literary agent?
Great question.
Yeah.
So one, you can't just Google them, and it's pretty difficult to cold call a literary agent. They almost always, you're sort of get into this network of the secretary or whatever. You can cold email an agent, and that is done all the time. If you know somebody in the business, definitely that's an in right there. The best place, I think, to get a literary agent is at a writer's conference. Actually go somewhere, meet someone face-to-face, sit down with them, explain your project, and it's a two-way street where you're kind of interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Do you believe in what I'm writing? Do you have a vision for what I'm trying to tell the world as well?
Yeah, that's cool. I wouldn't even know where to begin. My journey was a little bit different because I had publishers reaching out to me wanting me to write a book, and I'd never written a book before, and so my path was a little bit different. But one thing that you kind of hit on, I think it is good to go to conferences, to get out of your basement, I guess, so to speak, where not a lot happens if you're emailing. In my experience, because again, I've been in sales for 30 years, and sending emails or making phone calls, I've had my best success when I just get in my car and I go and I just try to, knock on doors and meet people. And even, you might spend a whole day, I'm speaking of sales, might spend a whole day, but boy, it's so much more productive, and I and get a nice nugget that I can then run with. And when you get yourself and you put yourself out there and you go to these, you make connections that you just can't make over an email or over a phone.
Yeah.
So
the very first full-length manuscript I ever wrote, it was a memoir about my first year as a father. I'm actually a dad of 3 kids.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
3 kids, and it's girl, boy, girl, and they are 19, 14, and 9 now. So when the 19-year-old Addie, when she was just a baby, I wrote a memoir of my first year of a father's life.
Oh, that's cool. Is that still in print?
It actually never saw print.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Pieces of it ran in the newspaper as articles. I took it to writers' conferences to show to various agents, and they're all kind of like, yeah, it's pretty good, but you're kind of still starting out, and maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. I refined it a couple times, never did sell. The cool thing about that manuscript, though, is one is it's a great record. to have for my daughter now. I've given it to her now, and she's read it.
Yeah.
It got me in the door. It showed publishers that I could pull off a full-length manuscript. Showed agents that too. One of the conferences that I went to, a very high-level New York agent, I had given him my manuscript. He sent me an email and he said, you know, I don't think we can find placement for your manuscript, but I've got a different project that I'd like you to consider working on. And it was about this humanitarian who worked in Haiti, and the work that she was doing with orphans. I had actually been to Haiti. He didn't know that, but I was like, yeah, I'd love to work on that. And that process actually got me into collaborative writing and helping people write their books. And so one thing leads to another, and even if you don't sort of see success in your initial project, the lesson I learned was sometimes you'll see success in a new area. It's good to stay nimble. Sometimes you have to pivot.
Yeah, I like that. One thing that popped into my mind, that I was watching a show on, it's a little bit off of what you're saying, but a little bit on too. So Ed Sheeran, I think that's how you pronounce his name, the singer. I was watching the documentary on him, and he was talking about writing songs when he was in high school, and he would write, and it was horrible. He said, I was writing, but I just kept writing. And then he said, I think he said that it was his teacher encouraged him and talked about, the more you write, the more it's like a pipe that has rust or water that's running through it that's got all this gunk in it, and you just got to let the water run, let it run, and then pretty soon it's running clear and you're writing good stuff. And obviously he's very successful after persevering through some of what he would consider bad stuff. It was probably pretty decent because I think he's got a gift, but anyway, I think there's something to be said about getting it done, and then you refine it, and then you get it done, and pretty soon you're pretty good at it, right? You don't have to think so much because you've been there.
Yeah, 20 years into this now, I look at some of the material I was writing when I was first starting out. I was going, oh my goodness.
Right.
But you got to start somewhere and start confident you can do it.
Yeah.
So we talked about the literary agent. The literary agent actually takes your manuscript, and usually it's actually a proposal document. A proposal document, it kind of explains the book that you've just written. Even that, when I first learned that I had to write a proposal document, I was kind of like, well, why don't people just read the manuscript that I just, sort of bled all over, for so many months. Well, anyway, in the industry, this is how it's done. You write a document that explains what you've done. It's a shorter document. It talks about sort of what each the big idea of the book and who you're trying to target in your target audience, and outlines each chapter. Talks a little bit about your platform and how you're reaching readers or potentially reaching readers, and then to write a proposal document. Google it, how to write a book proposal, and there are books on this that can explain this in any number of documents. So the agent will take your proposal document and shop it to publishers, and this is a really fun part where hopefully you will interest these high-level publishers who are mostly in New York these days, not all of them, but most of them. And that can be a really fun process. Sometimes you'll have bids on your book where these publishers, there'll be more than one who's interested, and so it'll go to an auction, and the agent will handle who eventually shepherds your manuscript through the publication process. When and when it does get a contract, you get what's called an advance against royalties, and this is money that the publisher pays you ahead of time, even before your book is sold. Advances can be all over the place. I've seen advances for, $2,000 or under. I've seen advances for as high as 7 figures with some of the people that I've worked with. So there is no rhyme or reason to how much money you could expect. I do encourage people to have a day job for a while.
Yeah,
because
it
can be hard to make a living in this industry when you're first starting out.
Yeah.
So the advance is usually paid in quarters. A quarter when you start the process, a quarter when you finish, a quarter when your book comes out, and then a quarter about a year after your book comes out. And so that way the publisher's kind of continually giving you a little bit of money,
Yeah, that's how mine worked. Yeah, very, very similar timeline. Yeah.
Good. So the final step of that process is promoting the book. When I first started writing, boy, I didn't really know anything about promotions. These days, when I have a book that's just come out, there is extensive work that I do in this area of contacting people, of helping to secure interviews, of reaching out to people who are social media influencers and asking them to, mention the book on Instagram or whatever's coolest in the day. So publishers want you to be in motion. I use that term, be in motion, be already reaching your readers. Sometimes if you're introverted, which is me with a capital I, that whole process of promoting a book can feel daunting. And I encourage people to think of it that you're definitely not promoting yourself. You're not even necessarily promoting your book. You are promoting your message. What message do you want to give people that's going to benefit their lives? Like this book here, it's actually about empathy, and it's about forgiveness, and it's about doing the things that you fear the most. And those are all things that I believe in. And so I can sit down with a friend and I can say, yeah, this book is actually going to help you. It's going to encourage you. It's going to inform you as to a period of history that's quite exciting. And then when you read this book, you're going to have some new things that are going to help your life. Maybe if you've got a burden, you're going to be encouraged to set that burden down. Maybe if you're holding a grudge in your heart against somebody, you're going to be encouraged to extend forgiveness to that person, as did Joe Johnson in this book. So it really is about what is your good and noble message. What message do you want to get across to your readers? And then that's really what you're helping. It really is something that's going to help your readers' lives.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So unfortunately, because of COVID, my channel, so COVID for me has been a blessing and there's things that I'm with everybody else where COVID's been hard, but when the publisher first reached out to me and we talked about it, and then there's supposed to be this big promotion thing, I was naturally getting people emailing me wanting me to do interviews, right? So I've done a ton of interviews, but there was also supposed to be, I was supposed to fly to New York and do some book signing. I was supposed to, I think, fly somewhere else there, and it all fell through because we were still locked down a year later when my book came out. So that was unfortunate. I thought that would have been a great experience too. This whole thing, you talk about introvert, we're a couple introverts. And so I've had to kind of grow through a lot of that because I've been putting in these situations, and I think you guys are kind of laughing along with me or living vicariously through me as I'm going out on this adventure that I never ever imagined for my life. But I would think that would be kind of cool to go out and actually meet people that are interested in not only meeting you, but reading your book, and you have that kind of connection there. Because you do kind of feel a connection when you read what somebody's written.
Absolutely,
So,
yeah. And to put a plug in for Rob's book, again, Rob's not doing this to sort of, because he wants a new minivan or whatever. It's his vision, and I know his heart in this is how can I help you? And so his book is all about, inspiring you or informing you or educating you to things of the world. So there really is just a lot of good. It's like he's serving up this barbecue, and he's saying, "Come to my barbecue, and you're going to go away full and happy." That's what's in Rob's book.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I was really proud of it. It was daunting at first, and again, having a guide was really helpful. My brother Rick actually helped a lot too, because I was having to rely on him for a lot of the history since I was young when some of this stuff happened. But being able to share my siblings with everybody and trying to pass along quality traits. I can't remember the name of the book, but I read another book that was kind of similar, where you're able to kind of think about these different character traits that you could incorporate in your own life, and that's what I was hoping to pass along. One thing I need to ask you, so because this is new to me, what do you do with reviews when people write reviews about your stuff? And you probably get great reviews. See, for me, I can't help but want to know what they got from it. And you get 99 great comments, and then you get one that kind of sticks in your craw. And I'm just being completely vulnerable here. where man, I wish I could write a reply, you know. So like it's on Amazon and it's up there for everybody to see. One of the comments was, you know, highly religious, and you know, I in my on my channel I always say God bless you. So surely you'd think that you'd have a hint that I was a man of faith of some sort, right? And so I share a little bit more about it, and then also in defense of that, it is my story, and if I left that out, you know, you wouldn't be learning about me, you'd be learning about somebody else, right? This is my story of where I came from. And then there was another comment that said, what did it say? Something like 2/3 of the book is Catholic proselytizing. And I thought, you certainly haven't read the book, because I'm not Catholic. I was raised Catholic, and 2/3 of the book. I mean, I've told you a million times not to exaggerate. Yeah, but 2/3. I mean, come on. You know, half of the book is how-tos, and then the first half again. You know, I share my faith journey because it's my story, and I would be sharing somebody else's story if I left that out. And I told you that early on. I said, and I even told the publisher, I said, I have to be able to share kind of what I've been through. And if it's really going to be me, I would be doing a disservice to everybody if I painted a different picture.
Yeah. And thank you for treating Rob kindly, because I know 99% of you think and feel that way. And that's great. It's a vulnerable world we live in. It's a public world we live in these days. And this era that we're living in now, I mean, kind of anything that we do is archived. And you have this permanent record following you around for the rest of your lives. Yeah, if you want to write a book, if you want to be a writer, reviews are part of the process. A couple things to think about there is that if you, I forget who said it, but it's like if you throw a rock in a pond, it ripples out all directions. And so if you do a good and noble work, if you write that book, if you publish it, some people are going to go, wow, I really, really gravitate toward that message. And then other people sort of on the other side of the ripples are going to go, oh, I didn't get that at all. I had no idea what he's talking about. So misunderstandings are part of life. Sometimes people, when they do write negative reviews, are coming to the table with their own hurts. I think certainly the world of Twitter is a social media platform that it's kind of the voice of rage. It's kind of the voice of lament, and rage and lament are part of life. But boy, if you're looking to Twitter to sort of build yourself up and find your self-worth.
I'm not on Twitter.
Yeah,
for that very reason. Exactly. I don't. Yeah.
The good thing I think with if you do get a negative review and these things do happen, is you just go, I know what I'm doing, and I know why I'm trying to reach readers, and I have this message that is beneficial for people that I want to get across. And you camp on your vision. You camp on why you're doing things. Know that why, and that helps you get through. Well, he didn't understand it. That happens. That happens in life. And I'm not this person's enemy. I would love to sort of explain things to this person. It's probably never going to happen. Yeah. But God bless him. So yeah.
Well, I guess that's the difficult thing, because I try to read comments on my own channel and I can reply. Yeah. Somebody says something, I can say, well, I can say something, but on Amazon, as far as I know, you can't. If somebody makes a comment, it's kind of up there for everybody to see. Yeah. And it's like, was that necessary? Did you really? Or you feel like you're warning people or something? Like I'm doing something nefarious or something? Anyway, it would be nice to at least say, listen, I think you might want to reread it, because it's certainly not Catholic proselytizing, because I actually talk about how I left the Catholic Church. So. Yeah. Anyway,
it's that mindset that I think these days, knowing that once you put something out there, it's gonna take on a life of its own. And so, coming back to that very first point, it is a little difficult. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing, and knowing that negative reviews can be part of the process. That's to remind yourself on those days when you get a negative review, you go, oh yeah, okay, well, it's not the easiest thing in the world to publish that book. Yeah, and yet to have that courage and that sense of backbone to know, and confidence and knowing, yep, but my message is good, and I'll stand by my message.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. It's this whole thing's been a learning process for me with my channel as well, with that type of stuff, So, I don't know. We can wrap up here pretty quick.
Sure.
But I think you
We talked about the three principles, we talked about the three parts of the process, and then there's the one golden rule. So the one golden rule is this. Imagine that you're a reader and you're walking into a bookstore. 47,000 titles are screaming for your attention. Why do you pick up the book that you do and peruse it and kind of look at it and go, yeah, I think I want that book. I think it's going to be good in my life. Why do you do that? Because that book gives you some kind of benefit. It entertains you, it informs you, it inspires you, it challenges you. And so the golden rule is when you are writing a book, think about that little imagery and remember the reader, remember the reader, remember the reader. That's the golden rule. Serve the reader in nobility and in love and in empathy. What are you giving to the reader? When you're writing your book, it's not simply about you've had this great experience and now you're going to write about it to kind of get it off your chest. It's I've had a great experience or I've learned something new and now I want to get it off my chest so I can help the reader. Yeah. So I can inspire the reader. It's always remember the reader.
I appreciate the fact that you're coming at it from that perspective. I just wonder if probably not all authors are coming from that perspective, right? I mean, maybe that's my cynical side. I think that's great that that's how you write, because you're wanting to do something that, yeah, and maybe that is kind of the nugget is if you do that, then you'll have a good reception for what, because, if you're doing it for selfish reasons or, that can come across,
Sure.
So, yeah. So is that about it, or?
That's about it. Yeah.
I got to tell you a little bit. So Marcus too. This is the first time we've actually met in person, which is kind of cool. We got to know each other pretty well.
We met in COVID, right? It was right at the
right.
Yeah.
Right. And so we were talking over the phone. He lives up north, and we just would talk over the phone. And so, anyway. Pretty cool.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you too, finally in person. So I think that's about it. Yeah, we'll wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed this. I think the cool thing about my channel, I can do all kinds of different things that I can bring to you. And I think, a New York Times bestselling author, that's kind of cool. It's not something you don't get to pick their brains very often. And so I thought that Marcus reached out to me and I thought, let's do that for sure. I think it's a valuable thing that we can also put up on my channel so people can learn some things that they probably may never thought they'd ever learn, or maybe they didn't know they wanted to learn, but it is a cool piece. So yeah, so thanks Marcus, thanks for being here. Thanks everybody, thanks for watching, and God bless you.